Live from the Ball State News Center, this is NewsLink Indiana in high definition.
Hello everyone, welcome to NewsLink Indiana Sports Show recap of the 2015 Ball State football spring season. I'm your host, Robert Connett. I'm joined tonight by Tony Sandleben, Peter Hood, and Ryan Flanery. We've got the entire group here tonight. Guys, how are we doing?
Oh, fantastic. It's absolutely exciting to be here.
It's fantastic to be here. Great to be with you guys, and certainly excited for football season right around the corner now.
Couldn't be better, talking football in spring.
Absolutely. Let's get right to it. Saturday marked the end of the spring season for the Ball State football team with the annual spring game at Schumann Stadium. Let's take a look at the highlights. There we go. The offense dressed in white. The defense wore the black tops. Jack Milas fighting for the starting quarterback position. He played with the first-string team. Here he completes a short pass to Flanery. He looks to be one of the top targets in 2015. Milas finished 21 of 26 for just under 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ozzie Mann got his reps in the first half as well. His performance in the game was summed up with 2 deep passes. One of them here caught by Jordan Williams across the middle, and the other pass going to be caught 69 yards. Check this out, down the far sidelines to Devin Reese. A beauty of a catch. That was Devin Reese's only catch of the game. Ozzie finishing 13 of 17 for a $169 and a touchdown. Now the running game was a tough battle for 2015 as well. Teddy Williamson made some noise with that touchdown right there. Another ball carrier fighting for the top spot, James Gilbert. Here on this play, going to turn the corner on the near sideline, dive and touch the pylon for the score. And on the defensive end, Josh Posley, the transfer from Cincinnati, had 3 sacks on the day, including one right here. But in the end, the offense going to prevail 56-37, the final score. As we mentioned, Jack Milas finishing 21 of 26 for 196 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ozzie Mann with 1 touchdown, 169 yards. With the wide receivers, Jordan Williams led the way, 4 catches, 98 yards, 1 touchdown. Devin Reese with that 69-yard catch down the sidelines. Corey Flanery, 6 receptions for 50 yards, and Kevon Mabon had 4 receptions for 34 yards and a touchdown. And on the running game, James Gilbert, 11 carries, 47 yards and a score. Spencer Gilbert, 10 carries, 35 yards. And Teddy Williamson finishing with 34 yards and a touchdown. So, gentlemen, as we saw the spring game on Saturday, we're going to ask you your thoughts of the spring game. Tony, we'll start with you.
Well, I don't think anything really took us too much by surprise. I think a lot of things really happened the way we kind of overall expected them to. I think the quarterback battle really got interesting in the sense that Ozzie Mann was a lot more aggressive in this game than he was, I think, all of last year. So certainly a way to get himself on the radar and certainly spice things up in the quarterback battle. But overall, I thought the offense had a phenomenal day.
Yeah, I thought the offense really stuck out, and I think it was a good spring game in the sense that you saw both sides of the ball do things really well. And I think that's what you want in the spring. You want to see both sides of the ball perform well. I thought obviously the offense got off to a fantastic start led by Jack Milas. Ozzie had a really good day as well. The offense performed, I think, beyond expectations even on Saturday. And then you saw the defense do some good things, and we'll get into a little bit later about some of the things we saw specifically that they did well. But I thought both sides of the ball performed well. You can see the experience that this group has returning in the way they played Saturday, and a lot of positive signs overall, Ryan.
Definitely. I think the offense, as you guys keep mentioning, played very well on Saturday. The rhythm that was there between Jack and Milas, they both had 6 starts under their belt heading into the spring game from last year. And the defense did look a little choppy there. It looked like they missed some assignments here and there, but nothing to really worry about with the on the defensive side of the ball there. The defensive line, I think, is going to come together this offseason, and with some of the injury guys on the secondary should be able to come back. I think it's going to be a fun year for Ball State.
Well, we got a chance to talk with head coach Pete Lembo for his take here today.
Well, it was a good day. It was a great turnout, and we got out of it healthy. The only scratch we had, Corey Flanery, got a little MCL tweak, but he'll be fine. So it's always nice to get through the spring and the spring game without anybody getting banged up too badly. So I'm pleased about that. I thought the offense came out really sharp. Timing and execution, particularly with the first unit, was very good. Moved the ball down the field, and both quarterbacks had some success today as well. So that was good to see.
So there you hear it from head coach Pete Limbo. And guys, the offense looking pretty good, but the top battle that everyone is looking at is the quarterback position. So Tony, we're going to start with you and your thoughts about Jack Milas versus Ozzie Mann for that top quarterback spot.
Well, I know certainly coming into this game, Jack Milas really seemed to have a firm grip on the starting job. You know, he all throughout spring practices, he's working with the ones, working with the starters, and a lot of it was because of kind of how the end of the year went. Jack Milas came in to replace Ozzie Mann and really did outperform him in a certain number of ways, including aggression and being not afraid to go deep with the football. But as I mentioned before, Ozzie Mann did surprise a lot of people with his aggression early, those 2 deep balls early in the game. I mean, I remember sitting there on the sidelines thinking, wow, Ozzie Mann just launched that football. We really didn't see that at all from him when he was starting at the beginning of last year, so certainly a good way to spice things up.
Yeah, Coach Limbo said after the game that you mentioned it, Jack's been taking the reps with the ones, and there's no reason to think that going forward that that's going to change, and I don't think there should be either. But I think what you have now is you have depth with the quarterback position, and that's something you didn't really have last year. Of course, Jack and Ozzie were both newcomers. Both of them had never started at that position before. They were both kind of getting their feet wet, and you see in the spring game kind of the development of both of those guys, kind of the maturing of both of those guys, and it's been really fun to watch. And I think what you have now is a situation, Ryan, where no matter who you put at the signal caller position, you're going to have a guy back there that can go in and run the offense effectively. We saw that on Saturday. Certainly, though, it's Jack's job to lose. He was almost flawless on Saturday afternoon at Schumann.
Definitely. Jack has pretty much been his job all spring. He's been working with the ones. He solidified that last year when he got the last start of the game against Bowling Green, even though Mann came in after that injury. But he looked good. Milas looked good. He looked clean, looked in rhythm, didn't make many mistakes. But like you said, Ozzie was a lot more aggressive on spring, which is something he had to work on all offseason. The coaches must have gotten into him that he needed to take more shots down the field. And like you said, he had that big pass down the field, Tony, during the game. And Milas was 21 for 26 on completions. There were 196 yards for 2 touchdowns. But Mann had similar numbers for 13 passes down the field for 17 completions with 169 yards and 1 touchdown. So both quarterbacks look like they're pretty balanced. Like you said, Peter, both of them could be. Doesn't really matter who you got back there. It looks like it could be a productive year for Ball State offense.
And it's worth noting here, guys, that no matter who the quarterback is, you don't need them to go out there and be Superman. You don't need them to be Keith Winning or an NFL-type quarterback. They've got playmakers around them. You know, their job is to get the ball to the playmakers in space and let those guys do the rest. You don't need those guys to come in here and be an all-MAC quarterback or a Heisman Trophy candidate or anything insane. You just need to get the ball to your playmakers. And I think both of those guys showed on Saturday that they can do that.
And I will say, if anything is going to separate these two and kind of have a decision easily made for the coaches, it's the second half of that game. I think both quarterbacks were pretty hot at the beginning, making a lot of good completions. We mentioned that was where Ozzie's 2 long passes were. But as the game went on and as drives started to stall and defenses started to make adjustments, I think it was Jack that kind of separated himself and was still able to get a couple productive scoring drives going versus Ozzie kind of tailed off a little bit.
Yeah, well, after the game, we were able to catch up with Jack Milas to get his thoughts on Saturday's game.
I mean, it helps. We've gotten a lot better since day 1 of the spring. And I mean, last year we had like 12 points maybe the whole spring game. And, you know, just we came a long way and we just got to keep working harder to keep coming along. But yeah, that helps a lot. I mean, you get off to a good start, then your confidence just goes up and everybody's confidence is really high. And that makes it a lot easier.
Now, while Jack Milas appears to have a firm grip on that top quarterback position, it does appear that another up-and-coming sophomore could be potentially starting this year in the backfield. Here we have offensive coordinator Joey Lynch talking about how that position, the running back position, that group fared on Saturday.
No, that was in the plan, and I knew Darian had a great spring, so we wanted to play him early and get him a couple touches, and then we wanted to see some of the younger guys carry the ball a little bit, So I think all 3 of the guys got a lot of carries, which is good, and we want to see how they react in a live situation, But running back this year is going to be by committee. We think we got some good players, and we don't have that one guy like Jawan that's going to carry it probably 30-35 times a game, but we still want to run the ball, and we think we can have just as much success with running back by committee.
And you heard him talk about Darian Green. Got 1 look in the very beginning of that game, guys, but then for the rest of the game, he's on the sidelines. 3 more guys trying to fight for that running back position. So again, we'll start with you, Tony. Let's talk about the running back battle for Ball State in 2015.
Well, I think actually that first drive is a lot more crucial than people are kind of letting on to be, in the sense that that was a very quick drive. It was only, I believe, 6, 7, 8 plays, but Darian Green had 4 touches in that drive alone, and was really kind of the bell cow for that drive, getting a lot of the production for that offense, resulting in the quick score. But one thing to say, when they got inside the 20, inside the 10, they switched gears, put Teddy Williamson in, and he really powered his way in with the touchdown drive to cap it off.
Yeah, you heard Coach Lynch allude to it. Darian Green had a phenomenal spring. He's kind of their playmaker, their guy. But you're talking about running backs with different sort of running styles. Darian Green's more of the scat back, the guy you can get to the outside, more of the Darren Sproles type, I guess you would say. And then you look at James Gilbert, a guy who's, despite only being a freshman, has got some bulk to him. He's kind of that combination of size and speed that you can run through the middle. And Teddy Williamson is one of the hardest working guys on the team. He's one of the smartest football players on the team. He knows how to wiggle through those holes. And it's fun to see his improvement. He's added 20 pounds in the offseason. Looks a lot better this spring than he did last spring. So you're talking about guys, like Tony said, who have different running styles, but you can see that all of them are ready to produce. And like Coach Lynch said there, you don't have a Juwan Edwards this year that you can hand the ball to 30, 35 times a game. It's going to have to be running back by committee. This offense has to strike some balance. And I think with those 3 guys back there, and Spencer Gilbert showed a little bit of what he can do on Saturday as well. Those 4 guys combined, I think, can make Ball State an effective running team, or at least effective enough to where Jack and Ozzie will have lanes to throw in the passing game.
Definitely, there's going to be a lot of balance in that backfield this offseason this season because with the 4 running backs we got between Darian Green, Teddy Williamson, Spencer Gilbert, and James Gilbert. Darian Green definitely seemed like your starter after the game, getting the first carry in the first series, and like you said, 6 carries, 6 plays down the field. And then once they switched it up with Teddy Williamson, put him into the end zone there, almost seems like Darian Green and Teddy Williamson could have a Horatio Banks, Juwan Edwards relationship going in, like we saw last year going into the season. Darian Green had 2 carries for 18 yards for that day, and then Teddy Williamson had an impressive day with the passing game with 3 receptions for 14 yards. So they're trying to get him involved there, and it's going to be interesting to see what James Gilbert can do, that freshman coming in for the Cardinals.
And something else to look at too from the offensive side of things, the wide receiver group. We have a new wide receivers coach this year, and obviously the top guys are pretty obvious in Jordan Williams and Kevon Maybon, both of which made fantastic plays throughout the game. But somebody to keep my eye on, and someone that really stood out that kind of surprised me, was Corey Lacanaria. He really made some plays. He was targeted early and often and was very shifty, very aggressive, trying to break tackles and get as many yards after contact as he possibly could. And so who knows, maybe he could emerge as kind of an X factor in this passing game that could be the difference for Ball State this year in a numerous amount of games, just getting a little bit more experience there at the wide receiver group and perhaps being a difference offensively.
Hey, Tony, I'm glad you brought that up in terms of other groups in the offense. The wide receivers are going to be key this year because you look at kind of the inexperience at the running back position. I think Teddy Williamson had all of like 30 carries last year. Obviously, James Gilbert has never carried the ball in a college football game. Darian Green had limited reps last year. So you still have some inexperience there. The receiver position, though, you bring everybody back from last year. And the same with the offensive line. The offensive line, it's huge to be able to get back all 5 guys from last year's team at that position. But you're right, Tony. The wide receivers, obviously, Jordan Williams and Kevon Maybon, I alluded to it earlier, are phenomenal players, all MAC-type performers, and they're going to need them to have great years. And Corey Lacanaria is certainly a guy that they're going to be counting on in the slot as well.
The offense looks to be fun to see what happens in 2015. We're now going to transition to the other side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball. Last year, injuries hurt the defense for the Cardinals. Already this spring, a few defensive players are already hurt. Aaron Taylor, Deshaun Hurley are 2 big names trying to heal by the start of the season. Now, we saw the defense struggle at times in the spring game on Saturday. So now we're going to ask about the defensive side and your guys' take after watching that spring game. Tony, we'll start with you. The defensive side for Ball State.
Well, we kind of alluded to it already in talking about how productive the running backs were and how productive the offense was. That's good when you're looking at it from the offensive side of things. It's a little bit concerning when you're talking about it from the defense, in the sense that running game especially, there were a lot of holes that were exposed on the defensive line, And, we asked the coaches about it. They said, got a little things to work on, but nothing to be too concerned about. But a lot of those holes look pretty big. So my primary concern, I think, this year for the Ball State defense would be that defensive line.
Yeah, the defensive line was something I was really interested in seeing on Saturday. They're tinkering with some different schemes this year with the front seven. They're traditionally a 4-3 defense, or at least they were last year. They're looking at some 3-4, some 3-3 stack, all to try to get more pressure on the quarterback, and they were able to do that on Saturday. 6 sacks total. Josh Posley, the Cincinnati transfer, had 3 sacks all by himself. Osa Igbenuson and him battling for that job. Nick Miles, of course, was lost to graduation, a 4-year starter after last year. So I was interested to see how they were going to manufacture more pressure, which is something they're trying to do more of. They were able to do that on Saturday, Ryan. That's certainly something you have to be pleased with if you're Coach Kelly. But there were some holes exposed in the passing game. You saw a couple of mistakes on the back half of the defense due to some inexperience back there. But you bring a lot of the front seven back. Everybody except for Nick Miles is back. Of course, there are some things to be worked out on the back half with Eric Patterson now gone, with Brian Jones now gone. But certainly I think there's a lot of good pieces in place. But I was happy to see the pressure they were able to apply on the quarterback on Saturday, because I think that's one of the main things you're going to be looking at this year to try to rev that defense up even more.
Definitely what I was looking at on Saturday was that secondary, like you guys were mentioning, with the graduation of Eric Patterson and the injury to Aaron Taylor right now. We're a little worried about what the secondary is going to look like, and Ozzie Man and Miles and that wonderful receiving core that you guys alluded to earlier, we're able to find the holes into that secondary that we have. And hopefully the injuries with Aaron Taylor come back and some of the pieces start to fit in. But like you said, with the defensive line, we saw 6 sacks on Saturday, which was big for the defense, because pass rush was an issue last year for the Cardinals, and trying to get them to be more aggressive on that pass rush and trying to get to that quarterback will be big for the Cardinals, so we can set the offense up on some good drives.
And Eric Patterson is a huge loss. I mean, he was a first-team All-MAC player last year, a shut-down corner. I mean, you could count on him to shut down one side of the field. So replacing him is going to be a tall task. But the 2 guys they were missing on Saturday on the defensive side of the ball, Aaron Taylor, who is a leader in that linebacking core, a guy who's only a junior or was a sophomore last year, but a real playmaker on that defense. He's a big loss for that team. Obviously, he'll be healthy for the fall, but not having him on Saturday hurt the defense. And then Deshaun Hurley, a guy back there at safety who's got a ton of playing experience, having him missing as well hurt the defense. So once they get those 2 guys back, I think you'll be able to get a more accurate reading on what this defense will look like in 2015.
And also something else to mention, Martez Hester, even though he did play, he was playing kind of dinged up a little bit. He ended up being healthy enough to play, but I think it surprised a lot of us seeing him on the field. I think a number of us thought he was going to be a scratch from that game due to injury, but he did play noticeably a little bit slower, but similar deal. They'll all be healthy for the fall, so definitely something to look forward to.
Well, let's get a listen to defensive coordinator Kevin Kelly and what he thought on his defense.
Yeah, we did some good things, but we did some poor things too. The big thing is always giving up big plays, and we got to get off the field 3rd and 4th down. But everything's fixable, and we had some guys nicked up today, but we'll get them back. But that's no excuse. And offensively, they're doing some real good things. They really stress us on defense, which will help us down the road here in the fall, because we're going to see a lot of that.
And hearing the defensive coordinator Kevin Kelly, and we also had some listen-ins on the captain Ben Ingle and his defense, what he thought on Saturday as well.
Yeah, it's all about the next guy in. So, injuries happen during the season, so you're one play away from getting in there. We're missing a couple guys, but we're hoping to get them back soon. Overall, I think we gave a lot of effort. You obviously have some plays that you want back, but that's what you get in the film for, and just try to fix all your mistakes.
Hoping to get back soon. I think that's what a lot of Ball State Cardinal fans with the defense is thinking and hoping for the start of the season. So now we prepare for that regular season that begins in the fall. Now first, let's see a reminder of how Ball State fared last season, finishing 5-7 overall, 4-4 in the Mid-American Conference, as the Cards started out with a win in 2014 against Colgate. As you see there, the entire schedule and results of last year. A win against Colgate and then a tough loss at Iowa, 17-13. And guys, you look at that Indiana State loss, that still hurts to see. 27-20 at home, losing to the Sycamores, going on to lose 3 more games against Toledo, Army, and Western Michigan, bouncing back, getting a 3-point victory at Central Michigan, and a big win against the Akron Zips at home, losing to Northern Illinois by 2 touchdowns at home, losing to UMass 24-10, but like we mentioned before, the Cards finished the season strong, a 15-point victory against Eastern Michigan, and then that upset win against the East Division champions, the Falcons from Bowling Green. So again, a losing record for Ball State in 2014, but we get ready for 2015. We've talked about the scenarios with the offense, the defense, the changes, and what we are expecting in 2015. But let's get your thoughts as we go along and get ready for 2015, your predictions for these Ball State Cardinals. Tony, let's start with you.
Well, if I had to guess, the winner of that quarterback battle is going to be Jack Milas. I believe that we've said it already. It's his job to lose, and I just don't think he'll lose it. I think he performed well in the spring game. I think he outplayed Ozzie Mann in the spring game by a little, but enough to impress the coaches and say that he will be the starter. Now, looking at the schedule for this year, it's tough, guys. There is quite the opponents here on this 2015 schedule, or 2015 fall schedule. Starting out at VMI, that should be a relatively simple win for the Cardinals. I think that we have a better overall program than the Cadets, so I think that'll be a decent win for Ball State to kind of ease into the season. Now, Texas A&M, all we can really do there is just survive. Try to get out of there healthy. I mean, that's a strong SEC team that will pretty much lay it to us. And then you start getting into MAC play against Eastern Michigan. Another one there. Northwestern, that'll be a tough one. I think we have the capability of winning that game. Overall, I would say that Ball State comes out kind of at a 500 level season this year, maybe 1 or 2 games above, but other than that, I wouldn't look for too much saying the sky's the limit for this team. I think kind of an average, an improvement from last year, but not really much to say that it'll be a historic season, to say the least.
It's really hard to make predictions in the spring. I mean, you're looking at the schedule right now, and as you guys alluded to, it's going to be a tough schedule. You look at some of the conference games, and obviously you're at Texas A&M, but you're also at Northern Illinois and at Western Michigan, arguably the best 2 teams in the conference. You have to go to Northwestern. I think this team is capable of winning anywhere between 5 to 8 games, but it really all depends on how healthy they're able to stay, if they can get consistent quarterback play, if they're able to have balance on offense, and if the defense is able to shore some things up and really, above all things else, stay healthy. So I'm not going to put a solid number on it, but I think this team is more than capable, that being said, of winning up to 8 games. I would probably say closer to 6 or 7. I'm with you, Tony. Probably around 6-6, 7-5, just based on how tough that schedule is with at Northwestern, at Texas A&M, at NIU, and at Western Michigan. But certainly it could go either way. I think going into last year, we felt the same way, that this is a team that could win anywhere from 4 to 8 games. They fell right in between at 5 and 7. So we'll see how healthy they're able to stay this year, Ryan.
Definitely. There was a lot of positives coming out of last season with the two big victories at the end of the season. Like I mentioned, that upset over Bowling Green, as we're going to travel to we have Bowling Green home, this year. But the hard schedule with Texas A&M and Northwestern in the beginning of the year is going to set up the Cardinals for hopefully success later on in the year with those tough opponents. And like you said, guys, 7-5 around is where I'm predicting this Cardinals team at for this year. Maybe 8-4. We'll see where they're at towards the end of the year.
I think the biggest thing, though, that you have going for this team is the experience you have coming back. You know, last year's team, you had a bunch of guys stepping into roles that, quite frankly, they just weren't comfortable with. And not to say they weren't comfortable with it, but they just hadn't been under the lights before. They hadn't been in that setting before. The previous team graduated so many seniors that you had a lot of guys stepping into new roles last year. This year you have 18 starters returning. That ranks top 10 in the country. You've got a bunch of experience returning. You have guys that have now played in real game-like settings that know what it's like. They know what it takes to win games. And I'll say this, I think the obviously every game is important, but one big key on the schedule at Northwestern. You look at the Big Ten game that Ball State played last year, and you could argue that had they been able to hold on to that win at Iowa, maybe the whole complexion of the season changes. Maybe you go into Indiana State feeling a little bit better, you're able to win that game, and all of a sudden you're bowl eligible rather than 5-7. So Northwestern's a very winnable game. They're actually probably worse off heading into next year than Iowa was heading into last year. So that's a winnable game. If Ball State's able to win that one, you could certainly see them take off from there. But certainly a lot of winnable games, and it'll be an exciting one to watch in terms of next season for the Ball State football team.
And certainly something to remember about that Iowa game. Ball State had the lead for pretty much that entire game up until the end of the fourth quarter when, defense got a little gas and things just kind of fell apart. But I agree with you, Peter. I think this team can be improved. There's a lot of experience back, and continuity really is going to be a big factor in this season for sure for the Ball State Cardinals.
And like you guys mentioned earlier, the experienced players coming back is really going to help Ball State through this 2015 season. Very interesting to hear what you guys say. 4 to 8 wins possibly for this Ball State team. We'd like to hear from you, the fans and viewers as well. Tweet at us your thoughts and predictions for the 2015 season. We're at newslink_BSU. Hashtag BSU 2015 picks. So follow us on Twitter and let us know what you think about the 2015 football season. That's all we have for you tonight. Special thanks to Pete Limbo, Jack Milas, Joey Lynch, Kevin Kelly, Ben Engel for all the interviews after the game on Saturday. For Tony Sandleben, Peter Hood, and Ryan Flanery, our director, Eric Wanawato, our floor director, Darian Phillips, and everyone else involved with NewsLink Sports. I'm Robert Connett. Thanks for joining us and have a good night.